The world from 1914 to 1945. The first half of the 20th century changed the course of world history. Two world wars were fought that caused huge devastation and loss of human life and materials. Entire cities had to be rebuilt. The world prayed for peace. The First World War. The First World War, also called the Great War, lasted from 28 July 1914 to 11 November 1918. Many countries were involved in it. It was fought between two blocs, the elite power and the Central Powers. What caused the war? In the 2 decades preceding the First World War, countries were competing against each other to develop and acquire weapons. Countries were also forming political and military alliances to protect themselves. The atmosphere in Europe was very tense. Then on 28 June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, was assassinated by a Serbian. Soon Austria declared war on Serbia. As most countries had already formed alliances, they joined in to protect their allies. How was the war fought? Battles were fought in different countries. In Europe, the fighting took place along the Western Front and along the Eastern Front. The war was mostly fought from trenches. Soldiers dug open tunnels in the ground. They hid in them and fired from there. Machine guns and heavy artillery were used. Tanks and poison gas were used for the first time. German submarines called U-boats sank many ships of the elite powers. India supported Britain in the hope that Britain would grant her self-government after the war. Indian soldiers fought in Europe, in Africa and in West Asia. When did the war end? The war ended in November 1918. The elite powers emerged victorious. Both sides signed an armistice. The interwar years. After the war, a peace conference was held in Paris. The Treaty of Versailles was signed between Germany and the elite powers. Germany was blamed for the war and severely punished. The main terms of the treaty were: Germany would have to pay a heavy fine. It could not increase its military forces. Some of its territory were to be occupied by the elite powers. The First World War shook the world. To prevent such a war in future, the League of Nations was formed. Its objective was to solve disputes between countries and maintain world peace. The years after the war were hard for the people of Europe. Then came the Great Depression in 1929. Trade suffered, factories and banks closed down, and millions of people lost their jobs. The effects were particularly severe in Europe and America. The period saw the rise of two dictators, Benito Mussolini in Italy and Adolf Hitler in Germany. Hitler was more ambitious of the two. He became the Chancellor in 1933. His ambition to turn Germany into a superpower plunged the world into another world war. The Second World War. The Second World War was many times more destructive than the first. It started on 1st September 1939 and lasted for 6 years. Like the First World War, this was also fought between two blocs, the elite powers and the Axis powers. Almost 70 million people lost their lives. What caused the war? Germany was made to pay a very heavy price for its role in the First World War. This almost ruined the German economy. The Germans were very angry. They began to support Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party. Hitler promised to restore the glory of Germany. He began to strengthen the military to expand the German Empire. The rising military might of Germany alarmed other European powers. Britain and France decided to take a combined stand against Hitler. When Hitler attacked Poland with a desire to annex it, Britain and France declared war on Germany. Soon other countries in Europe joined either of the two warring parties. Thus began the Second World War. How was the war fought? The war was fought on land, air and water. Poison gas was used on soldiers and civilians alike. There were air raids and bombs were dropped on cities. Many cities were razed to the ground. Warships and submarines were used by both sides to gain advantages at sea. Hitler held the Jews responsible for Germany's misfortunes. He had them sent to labor or concentration camps. The conditions in these camps were inhuman. The Jews were tortured. It is estimated that more than 6 million Jews died in these camps. This event is known as Holocaust. On 7 December 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, America's naval base in Hawaii. This led USA to join the war on the side of Allied power. When did the war end? Germany had the upper hand in the war till mid-1942. After this, the Allied powers recovered and dealt a crushing defeat to Germany and Japan. By the beginning of 1945, Hitler knew that he could not win. He committed suicide in April. On 7th May 1945, Germany surrendered. Japan, however, continued to fight in the Pacific region. In August, the USA dropped atom bombs on two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This forced Japan to surrender, bringing the war to an end. Efforts to set up a peace organization had begun during the war itself. On 24th October 1945, the United Nations was formed. Let's recall. The First World War was fought between the Allied powers and the Central powers. The Allied powers emerged victorious. The Treaty of Versailles was signed in 1919. The League of Nations was formed. The world's economy faced a severe depression during the years 1929 to 1933. Europe and America were severely affected. The Second World War was fought between the Allied powers and the Axis powers. The Axis powers were defeated. Thank you.